Hello, my name is Catherine and I'm the Director within the Business of Data team here at Crinium, and it is a pleasure to have you joining us today. Driven by our global connected network, Crinium inspires data analytics senior leaders to drive efficiency and innovation and follow proven paths to success. The Business of Data show is just one of the formats that we showcase thought-leading insights from senior data analytics executives. In each episode, we'll discuss the latest industry news and research and explore the hottest topics, challenges and opportunities from around the world. On that note, we'd love to hear from you. If you have thoughts, questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please email them over to bod@criniumgroup.com. Individuals, our digital footprints are growing more rapidly with every passing year. For businesses, this means customers are more sophisticated and digitally savvy than ever before. This, along with the increased demand for online goods and services as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, means that developing a 360-degree view of your customers to provide world-class customer experience has never been more important. In fact, research we conducted earlier this year found that 66% of CX leaders believe that developing this view of the customer to provide personalized experience in the post-COVID-19 era will be essential. Joining me first to talk all things customer is Sean McCarthy, Executive Director and Global Head of Analytics and Segmentation from Claire's. Sean speaks at many of our Crinium events on a plethora of topics and is one of our Global Advisory Board members. I'm so glad he found time today to join us. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Hey, Catherine, great to see you again.
It's absolutely great to have you on the show today, Sean. I'm so glad we could connect. And I must say, I absolutely love the virtual background with the Claire's logo there. And I mean, let's dive straight into it. When it comes to your customers, how are you keeping your ear to the ground? And no, that is not a piercing pun, to understand their wants and feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've got a few different ways we handle it. What's shouldn't be surprising in a retail environment is that quite a bit of it's actually having a really great feedback loop from our stores. You know, as digital as we can get with everything these days, we've got a whole fleet of people interacting daily with our customers. And so we've actually, you know, the company's built out over the years just a phenomenal feedback loop between our stores and field and then people back at corporate. So that's one of the huge links that we utilize to make sure that we can keep our peer steer to the grindstone, and really understand what's going on. But we also have teams that monitor social, and then, we launched our loyalty program for the first time ever back in November in the United States. And so that's been a great basis for us to really start advancing the abilities and capabilities of understanding who she is on a more first party basis that's digitally driven. And outside of that, all the typical things you see at some of the other companies, with the social listening and the online feedback and customer care and things like that. From a data perspective, we also look a lot at just what's happening trend-wise, because we design so much of our own product for sale in stores. Just seeing what is she loving, what are the trends that are driving it, and, using that to understand what is she going after and what inspires her these days.
Now, obviously, we're connected on LinkedIn, and I saw you comment on a post the other day, and it's so true. It's absolutely organic, the fact that you are very much in touch with those boots on the ground that are within Claire's. But how does that look in practice? What are the types of analytics processes that you have that turn those, this customer came in and she was ranting and raving about this product. They absolutely love it. We've heard it a lot. How does that get to you in a way that you can present it and understand it and drive future sales experience and make sure that stays brilliant?
Yeah, well, at this stage, it's more mechanical than you'd think it would be. It's the field notes get generated every week, and then there are people on the store ops team who collate those into themes, and those get passed on to various buyers and teams like mine. We receive a weekly communication with the field feedback comments so that the buying teams, the departments, hair or jewelry or whoever it might be, can take that information back very quickly and integrate that into what they might be working on for the next evolution of a product, for instance. And so, longer term, as we are doing some digital migration internally from a data warehousing perspective, the desire would be to actually automate some of that in the sense of we could take the raw feedback and then using various natural language processing, similar to what the store ops team does to collate it, we could do a similar thing that automates it and then appends that immediately to the digital side of the data, as opposed to it being, all mechanical process with people. But, it's amazing the dedication of the people who do it now, because it's basically an analog version of what you would do digitally. And so that's how we're handling it at this point in time.
And I mean, what a great feeling for those employees part of Claire's to have that real understanding that their feedback is making real differences. As you say, controlling so much of the product that you do, it does, have a real impact. So you would have heard the title of this episode is the 360-degree view of the customer. What does that mean to you at Claire's?
Yeah, I mean, it can mean so much, right? Because, as far as we're concerned, we can take you from birth to the end of your life with our accessories and our product, and across our brands. And so for us, it's 360 in the sense of we're with you your whole life, right? From the first time you get your ears pierced to when you want to go to, get that costume jewelry for prom or a Christmas party, what have you. And, all the way throughout your life, we love the ability to be there with her on her journey. And so from that perspective, right, it's 360 in that it's really around her whole life. And then when she has children and, she wants to take them there, it's the same kind of thing. But then, in what you're really getting at, and, from the a bit nerdier perspective, it's what is that style journey, and, how are we ensuring that the product we are going after, and we have an amazing design team that just is always at the forefront of the pulse of what's going to be next, and it's fantastic. And so whether it's following the high fashion trends and delivering them to younger girls, or whether it's creating the trend itself by bringing product that no one else has in the market. For us, the 360, it's really about understanding where she is and how we continue to meet her where she's going to be, because, I have 3 daughters myself, and talk about a fickle consumer who can just, change what she loves and goes after on a whim. And so how do we continue to inspire and delight her in that way? And surprise her such that we keep her giddy throughout. And so for us, it's really about understanding that through the field feedback, social listening, And then seeing what is she actually buying, right? So they may be talking about something, but are they actually buying it, right? Is it actually selling, or is it just something that's a hype thing that's trending on, you can go to Google Trends and check it out and see the rise in search, but then from a business perspective, it's not actually driving any buying behavior. So that's how we kind of get at the 360 now. And obviously with the loyalty program growth, our desire is going to be to really expand first party wise, the richness of our data sets so that we can reach out directly to her and ask her, what do you love? What do you think you want to see next? Those types of things. I think the advantage of the loyalty program is that direct communication and that ability to ask her, what do you want? And so we're pursuing that as well.
And I suppose digital data is such an interesting point for Claire's. So, I mean, you've been around for so many years. I mean, when I think about when I was a younger customer and having my ears pierced in the local store, I didn't have a telephone. I wasn't communicating over TikTok and Facebook to my peers. But a lot of your customers now will be doing that. You will be seeing TikTok trends that include certain fashion items, which are going to give you an inclination that that's going to drive future sales. So I suppose you have more data now than ever that you're able to use. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And the ability to scrape social media, public social media, right, private is a different issue. And you always want to keep the transparency and what are we doing with data at the forefront, right? Because we're dealing with, children here for a lot of our demographic. And so, the ethics of it all is incredibly important to us. But yeah, from a pure, what can we go out and this is the most trending, these TikTok videos are trending, these Instagram posts are trending, the different pictures that are out there and the ability to understand what is going on in these pictures, what are the accessories in them, what are the colors, right? Basic things like that, right? Neural nets can do some very complex things, but neural nets can also just do some very basic things. And that can be enough for a trend perspective, right? What are the colors that are hitting, right? We're never going to get rid of the purples, right? We're Claire's. It's part of our heritage, right? And we love it. But all the different color schemes, right? The 80s are back now. So more of the fluorescent and neon type versions of colors are really popular. So how can you even do something as basic as that? You can pick up very easily out of these videos and the images that are out there and trending. And so, yeah, taking advantage of that is a huge capability that's out there and we want to take advantage of. And, when you're designing your own product, it makes sense because we have to come up with that. We have to come up with what is going to be the right color palette and things like that. So absolutely.
Yeah, and it's so funny how trends come in and out. I'm glad to hear the 80s are back and coming strong. But the last question I wanted to ask you there, Sean, you've really driven home how important it is to have boots on the ground, your brick and mortar business, and having that real close relationship with the customers. But I'm keen to know, what did this look like during the pandemic? I'm sure that many of your shops were closed across the globe, if not, most of them. So what did you do to stay in touch with that customer? I'm assuming it kind of went digital. And then coming back, how have you welcomed them back into your store and keeping that customer-centric view supported by the data?
Yeah, it's really, it was a very hard time last year, right? At this time, right? Very few stores were open at this time last year, both in the U.S. and in Europe. And, the online presence grew tremendously, right? Because there was no other place to do it. And, you think about our primary consumer, she can't shop online. She's mom there, right? And so now mom was there to do it as opposed to, well, we'll just go to the store on the weekend type of situation. But upon coming back, so that drove digitalization and the need to see how she's doing digitally. But, upon reopening, depending on where you are, you've been reopened for a year at this point. You've been reopened for a little bit longer. And I know some of you folks in the EU are still waiting for your freedom to go out and shop. But, from that perspective, welcoming back, the field did a tremendous job because you can't pierce through a computer. And that's those are our golden arches, so to speak. That's our bread and butter. And so what was amazing was just the demand for it, because, piercing is typically tied to some event in a girl's life, right? There's an age that the parents want to do it. It's a birthday. It's it's all those different things. And those things happened regardless of whether there was a pandemic or not. And so the need to catch up with that. And then the fact that so much of our world is this right here now, right? On video, the desire to accessorize and have earrings and all, it's just been a tremendous driver of business since the pandemic, since reopening, and for welcoming him back, the field was, we were blown away by the demand, and the field stepped up rapidly to meet it, because she's come back to get pierced and she hasn't stopped, and it's been fantastic for us. And we're just happy that we're able to make those memories for her despite everything else going on to the world. I think there's a very real, joy that we can bring to these customers' lives with everything else going on. There's so many hardships for so many people throughout with this pandemic. And we can bring that little bit of joy and delight to them with the little bit of playfulness and that our product can bring. And that smile, when you look around what's going on in the world, that smile can mean everything. And so it's been really fantastic coming back. And, for us, it's just been working closely with the field to understand how can we better support you guys from an inventory perspective, from a labor perspective, so that we can meet all the demand we get coming through our doors.
Brilliant. Well, Sean, it's always a treat to get to chat to you, but really, really very interesting to hear how you're keeping the customer front of mind. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Catherine. Really appreciate the time today.
Now let's head over to South Africa as I hand over to Craig Stewart to continue this fantastic conversation surrounding customer success with another brilliant guest. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Catherine. Always fascinating to hear international perspectives on what is such an important topic. Joining me here in Johannesburg via Zoom to share his incredible insights into achieving a 360-degree view of the customer is Simphiwe Phakathi, who is the Executive Head of Personalization for Business and Commercial Clients at Standard Bank. Simphiwe is a regular presenter at our events on customer insights and has been a guest on Data Conversations over coffee in the past. Simphiwe is leading the exciting future-ready transformation journey of ensuring Standard Bank's absolutely client-centric and partner for growth with their business and commercial clients across the group, covering 15 countries. Simphiwe, thanks so much for joining me today via Zoom this time for the Business of Data show, but good to see you. How are you doing?
Thank you, Craig, for having me once again. It's always great to connect with you as well as your audience. So thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Simphiwe, let's firstly just dive straight into it. I'm really interested to hear a bit more about the future-ready transformation. Can you give us some insights into that and what it means to being absolutely client-centric?
Thank you very much for diving right in. So being future-ready really talks to embracing the world we live in. So the world around us has changed, no thanks to COVID. I think it was in 2020 the biggest push forward in terms of the digital transformation for many organizations. As such, as an organization, Standard Bank decided to really reinvent itself, really, to focus on ensuring that we understand that our clients have evolved. Likewise, we can't sit still and pretend that we will be relevant in their lives. So we've gone through a complete review of our organization. We're embracing technology at the heart of our journey. We want to be a platform services business where we actually create a more, and everyone can form part of that more. And help us co-create solutions that make us relevant to our clients. So a classic example of this is ensuring that clients want to engage in a different manner. So their requirements, because of their lives have changed, are also different. So besides banking as a service that we provide, They might have additional services that make their lives better. So why should they have to go somewhere else to find that service? It's us being really focused on them as a client and their needs, and finding partners along the journey that might not be bank-centric, but if we partner with them, we can create a great solution or service that meets our clients' requirements. So it's really starting with the client first, and then looking at our ecosystem to solution for clients. That's been future ready.
Yeah.
The second and last component is ensuring that we've got the right skills for the future. As such, we've embarked, and it's no secret, we've partnered with a number of cloud providers, which we've announced publicly, AWS, Microsoft, and Salesforce.
Yeah.
And our staff are going through a great process of transformation themselves to live in this new world.
All right,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah, I have seen those articles around your partnership with Microsoft and various other technology companies. It really does seem like you're, shifting away from sort of a, traditional legacy bank into something that is really, as you say, future ready. All right, so you kind of, when we first met many years ago, you were really looking after customer data, and you kind of really transitioned into this role of, head of personalization, which is just such an absolutely critical topic. But let's take some steps back into getting a 360-degree view of customer, and a lot of that is obviously around data quality, etc. What would you say are some of the common mistakes that prevent businesses from actually achieving a 360-degree view of their customer?
I think the first thing is being data, internally focused, where we look at what are the things that we want versus understanding what client wants. So if we clear first what we're solving for from a client perspective, I think we would actually be clear what data elements we need to be able to solution for that. So being internally focused, I think, is the first issue. And if we don't get that right, it then has compounding effects because everyone focuses on what will benefit them. Data is then fragmented across different parts of an organization, as opposed to finding a common environment, or some have called it lake, some have called it reservoir, where we all go and fish for the same set of information so that we show up as one organization, not a number of divisions or a number of different countries. We show up as one bank. So those are some of the underlying elements. Data is fragmented everywhere across the organization. There's no common identifier that then makes it easily connect that information. And then the proverbial hoarding effect happens where we don't share the information because it's mine, for my business, for my customer. We lose sight that there's one customer and there's one share price for this organization. So those are some of the basic challenges which compound the problem and get in the way of us building a customer 360.
And how are you overcoming that? What sort of advice can you give to people to overcome some of those challenges? We talk a lot about the hoarding, the silos, no sharing data, not understanding that the one customer is the customer of the bank or the company, not of that department. How are you, especially now as you go into a future-ready state, cloud, etc., how are you ensuring that everybody has that one single view of the customer?
So in our future-ready transformation, we've organized ourselves in a way that we've clarified the client ownership model. We're clear that we will be segment-led because segments are closest to clients. And that's no longer up for debate. That's what it is. And that is what will lead and center our approach going forward. So it means all the other areas of the business will be focusing on enabling the business strategies or the segment-specific strategies which are informed by client requirements. That's the first thing that we've done in terms of our future-ready transformation. So being clear around that has already started to really help us organize ourselves in a way that it's not about my specific deliverables, it's about a common goal from a business perspective. As a result, the technology teams, the data teams are then working towards a common objective. We will store the data in a particular environment. We will use common patterns. We've agreed on a common architecture, which will then follow in executing for clients. It is still early on in our journey, but we believe by addressing the first important point on client ownership and agreeing a common architecture is going to help us get on the journey a lot quicker. Secondly, we've embarked on a big Salesforce journey, which will be the core platform that we use for bank staff as well as for clients. So we'll have a common interface across the board. I think that's going to be a second big factor to get us to a common customer 360 client.
All right, perfect. We've just got a minute left, and I want to ask you, say you're quite early in your journey, maybe this will set people at ease that are watching this, that are maybe at the beginning of their journey as well. What is your prediction for how long this is going to take you to get to a point where you're totally client-centric and you have a 360-degree view of the customer? It's quite a big question. We've only got a minute to go, but how long is the roadmap?
We are bullish, and we've got some key milestones that we're working towards. Some of these elements will be ready by end of year 2, which is end of next year. We started this journey late last year. So in year 2, we'll have some really foundational elements that are working and fully fleshed out. But it will take us probably another 2 years to have this solution fully fleshed out across the entire group. And you must understand we operate across 20 different markets. Yeah. So the group is massive and every country is unique. It's not the same as the next. So I think to be honest, it's a 4-year journey for us to get it really bedded down successfully.
All right, perfect. Simpiwe, thank you so much for sharing your insights today around 360-degree view of customer, and good luck with the transformation. No doubt with the leadership that you've got and the likes of yourself that you'll get to your end state.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to share and really looking forward to future engagements. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it from South Africa today. Back to the studio in the UK.
Now, earlier this week, I caught up with another brilliant thought leader to continue this fantastic discussion all about the customer. Neeraj, it's so great to see you today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Amazing. Well, I'm so excited that we get to talk about the customer, because I must admit, your role is fundamentally within data. You don't have customer in your title anywhere. So I'm keen to know, how do you fit within the puzzle of the customer?
Yeah, I think everything revolves around the customer. So I think kind of customer first. And when we look at data, I think customer data is the forefront of any other type of data components which is there. So obviously I lead up our data, our kind of fintech and regtech and digital practice. But within that, all of that has customer at the center of what we do. And if we take the data segment, for instance, customer data has become so important, not just in terms of data privacy and data protection and all those aspects, but it's become quite important in terms of the insights that are driven. And as I said, customer data is at the heart of any type of data attribute and data exercise.
Absolutely brilliant. So really just centering and anchoring into that customer. So, I mean, are there any specific examples that you can give of how your role has directly impacted customers over, say, the last 6 months? Because, it's great to have those real strong user cases.
Sure. I mean, there's a number of cases that have been there. We working with an institution in terms of the SME customers, so which would be the small to medium enterprises that are in so on. One of the things banks are really struggling with, actually, how do you actually support SME customers in the current climate, and how do you actually make sure there are really the right levels of governance in place in terms of anti-financial crime, know your customer, know your bank. So one key example is really around actually understanding which of those small to medium enterprises getting which type of funding during COVID times that's been made available. And then how do we actually manage and support in terms of the collection and recoveries of that lending that's been taking place. And it's a very very fine line in terms of actually working out what type of lending is appropriate in these hard times for those small to medium enterprises. And then when is the right time for collection? How do you actually look at what that looks like? And there are a couple of components around that is trying to understand each of those customers in a really different type of way, i.e. the small to medium enterprises from very, very small, one person type entities who are kind of small businesses who are entrepreneurs through to probably the larger organizations which are there, which have much more revenue, much more employees, which brings further complexity, and then the supply chain that these small to medium enterprises have and how that's affected.
Amazing. It's great to see that there's such a personalized level and really kind of micro level within the organization as well. Now, when we talk in the data analytics community, there's often a question around how do we make sure that data analytics is within every single department, that it's a passion area and that it's being thought of. But I actually want to kind of flip the question for you a bit, Naresh, and think, how do we avoid this silo thinking when it comes to the customer? How do you ensure that everyone within your department is really, really anchoring themselves to that customer and not thinking, oh, that's marketing's issue or that's, customer experience's issue? How do you keep them thinking about the customer with their work?
I think it's type of use cases and stories that we just talked about is really important. And one of the things I do with the team is actually really bring those stories and those use cases of how what we're doing is helping clients, customers every day. And data and digital sometimes gets lost in terms of the nuts and bolts and some of the theory, but it's to bring back to those use cases. And I think the most powerful thing is actual stories of how we're helping clients, how we're helping customers. What we're actually doing is what's the direct implication in terms of helping customers. One, in terms of actually curating the right data, collecting the right data, and then what in terms of the analytics and visualization, how does that help executives make decisions which directly impacts how they're treating customers fairly, how they're actually providing customers with more products and services, or in terms of reducing complaints and actually helping customers with queries. And I think those real case stories, use cases are really important to actually bring things to life. And it then keeps people grounded in terms of what they're doing is directly linked to how they're helping customers and clients in the real world.
I love what you say there about it being grounded, because I think that's so true. Sometimes it can feel quite conceptual or theoretical, but these stories actually really bring home that actually your work has impacted this, which has improved, as you say, customer experience or feedback, or there's been some sort of outcome, and also creating that feedback loop to then say, how can we improve this and continue those innovations and insights that data and analytics can be absolutely fundamental in providing as well, I think is so key, as you say. Now, I'm interested, earlier you mentioned about privacy, and we know now that the customer experience is so crucial, more so than the product a lot of the time. So how do you balance personalized customer experience with the need for customer privacy, and being delicate that, with the power that we all have with the data, you could come across a bit stalkerish, if I'm honest. So how do you balance that great customer experience with that privacy element as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Catherine. I think it comes down to the, at the end of the day, what is it that you're trying to do with your data? And I think I've been working with a number of organizations to help them around what their data strategy is and their data policy. And actually, I think organizations sometimes struggle to say, we just want all data and we want to collect all customer data. We want to be able to have more data. And one of the things that we've learned over time is not all data is equal. And secondly, collecting all that data will cause further headaches in terms of curating that data, making sure it's accurate, but also, staying in lines with some of the GDPR and other data privacy, data protection regulations. So I think how you really stay in line is, one, have a really clear data strategy and data policy of what you're using data for, collecting data in terms of customers, suppliers, the whole ecosystem, and what you're going to use it for, how you're going to use it, and be very clear in your data policy and data strategy. I think that's one thing that we're helping organizations on. I think the second is actually being very transparent then with customers in terms of what are the use cases, how are you going to use data, what you're going to use data for analytics, for contacts. And that transparency, I think, is important, linked to actually having that really clear data strategy and data policy. And then the third item is, I think, this type of very thin line between segmentation and personalization is actually thinking through, within the remits of the actual regulations around actually consent in terms of what's been allowed, and also in terms of the performance of contract, what you're able to do, and relying on those as a very much a guide. But beyond that, I think working through and thinking it from the eyes of the customer, the voice of the customer, saying, would the customer actually appreciate this personalization? And I don't think that hard question we ask is this personalization in terms of analytics and visualization and insight, which then you're going to contact the customer with, is that something the customer is expecting? Because you've been transparent, you've been clear, you know what you're doing, and it's been coming back to your data policy and your data ethics. Secondly, is that going to be useful for the customer, and really challenging yourself, as in, is that actually fulfilling a need, or are you trying to sell something just because they're trying to make revenue out of it? And I think then actual feedback loop with the customers as you're doing these things, to see how are they actually not just unsubscribe me from because you're getting, but much more asking the customer, are they seeing value from these types of personalization? So I think those are the steps I would suggest people take to make sure they're staying in line, not with just the rules and regulations, but also the more important thing about customer trust. And we're going to go into the area of customer trust, and data sharing much more with open finance, open data type initiatives, which are going to be there. And without the customer trust being there, all of that, it will definitely not work.
100%. I think just to revisit something you mentioned earlier, because I think it's so important. You say there about the importance of the strategy alignment with the business and the customer, and what you're doing with the data is so crucial. But I think in terms of that journey of being data driven, we were trying our hardest to get our organizations data driven. And in part of doing that, in part of ticking that box, it seems that many organizations are now just collecting all the data because we know we need data. Data is really great. But as you say, that right data and correct data not only impacts what you're doing with the customer, as we all know, it's common knowledge now that if you collect feedback and then don't act upon it, that's actually worse than having not collected any feedback in the beginning, because you've asked a question but not provided any answers or solutions to the potential challenges, or even acknowledged the positives with it. And then there's wider aspects, as we know, to collecting so much data. Most organizations are moving towards the cloud now, and that doesn't obviously just go in the air. That has real environmental and sustainable impacts as well, collecting so much data. So I appreciate what you said there, but what would be your advice to organizations who are perhaps struggling to align their strategy of collecting the right data and then the customer as well? What are the top tips you've got for that alignment?
Yeah, and I think when we talk about data analytics, sometimes the analytics and the data science is where people really rush to, and they forget data management. And so one of the key lessons we've learned over the last 10 years, and we'll continue to learn, is without the foundation blocks of data management, anything we do in analytics and data science is not going to be worth any value, both for the organization trying to make revenue, but also for our customers. So my kind of top tips are actually really understand, in terms of data management, there are some really good practices around actually looking at metadata management in a very focused way to say, these are your critical data elements that actually drive value for one, your organization, one, your regulatory and legal obligations, third, for the customer, importantly, et cetera, your models and where else. So I think focusing on metadata management within data management around critical data is really important. I think the second part then is really looking at data quality. Once you've actually worked out, these are your critical data elements, your critical data attributes, these are the ones which are important in terms of customer data, accounts and transactions, what type of data quality measures are you setting and how you measure the quality of data. And for legacy organizations, that's obviously much worse because they have a historical data quality problems, but really setting the bar in terms of data quality. And I think those two things are just very, very fundamental to be able to actually start deriving value from data, but also have regulators, shareholders, and wider stakeholders, but importantly, the customer, trusting you with their data, is saying, look, we have going back to the earlier point, we have a data policy. We are really clear on our data strategy. And then building on that, we're then very clear on our data foundations of having a very clear of what type of data, our critical data that we are collecting, we're doing something around, and then what are the quality measures so that we're never going to let that data quality go out of kilter. Even simple things like names and addresses and date of birth and telephone number. Nothing annoys a customer as much as you're on a phone with an organization, and the person on the other end really has no idea, even though you've given them the data multiple times. So curating that data and getting that right. And once you do that and you're able to be trusted with that data as an organization, I think customers will share data more and more. And I think you're seeing some organizations where customers are willing to share a lot more data with. We can talk about the likes of Amazon, for instance, as opposed to others where they're not happy to share data. And that doesn't come very easily. It's not just the brand value of the product. It's also linked to the customer journey, the way by which the customer has some level of control in terms of what they've been asked to do, and then transparency to be able to work that through.
100%. So for me, Naresh, in this conversation, trust is the big word of the moment when it comes to the customer. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been a pleasure.
There we go. What a brilliant episode. Thank you again to our thought leaders for their fantastic contributions. Next time, we'll be talking all about data analytics within the public sector. Just as we have done this time, we'll be joined by expert thought leaders to help us dive deep into the challenges and opportunities. Be sure to subscribe to the Business of Data YouTube channel, follow our page on LinkedIn, and visit our content platform for more great content, insights, and connections. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.